Hey, I told you if the premier is a Habs fan, I'm not being nice to him. Oh, hi, Michael Landsberg here. Welcome to the first ever kitchen party, I think, held west of the Maritimes. Kitchen Party Sick Not Week. We are here for a number of different reasons. The biggest reason why we're here is if we're not on the East Coast, if we're not in Nova Scotia, if we're on the rest of the country, as I am, we want to make a statement to those of you who have been experiencing so much tragedy and so much drama that, it's just kind of a statement that we're thinking about you and that we care about you. And in fact, I was thinking that I should read to you the original message I got from my friend Jamie Carroll, who is from your area. And he messaged me saying, because he and I are friends, he knows about our charity Sick Not Week. He's helped us in certain things. So this is what he sent me. This was a while ago now, May the 11th. Yo, talking to some buddies at home, and I think we should do a big Zoom call. You host, get Justin Trudeau to stop in, Arash Madani, he's from Truro as well. See if we can get other amazing guests, shoot for like 60 minutes. Cool? So that's how it all started. He reached out to me and said we should do this. And given the fact that we believe in the unity of this country and that we believe that if you suffer, we suffer. And the idea that during this pandemic, there's so many people who are struggling with mental health issues, immediately it was, we got to do this. So we have quite the show planned for you today. We are going to hear from all kinds of people who will share their thoughts. But the biggest thing for me is that this is a big factor in our lives. And that is the idea that, we're in a pandemic. You guys have had all these tragedies and it's so hard on people's mental health. My daughter and I started a mental health charity 4 years ago, and it was called, I wrote it down here so I could hold it up. But as you can see, I'm dyslexic and I ran out of space. So I tried it again and I got a little better this time. Sick, not weak. It's a statement. It's a comment. It's an answer to a challenge. I am sick, but I am not weak. And that's the name of the charity, and that's what we do. We try to convince people and show people that mental illness is a sickness, not a weakness. And if you are struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with this feeling of being unsettled and you've never been through it before, then I'm the right guy to talk to, because I've been through it for about 20 years. So we're all about sharing, and we're going to share all kinds of things today. And Phil, I'm going to get up and walk around. This is a kitchen party, right? It's a kitchen party. So let's walk around the kitchen. And as you can see, the kitchen party is all prepared, all cleaned up. Hold on one sec, okay? Cheesies, if they're out, you got to go for them. Kitchen party, people are being welcomed into our kitchen, and whoa, that's hot. I did some baking. These are a family tradition here in Landsberg. And it's hot. And the babka as well. So we're serving here. We're ready to go. We got our guests standing by, and guests started arriving. Hey, hold on one second, guys. Guests started arriving, I guess, about an hour ago, and here's how it looked. Let's find out who the first guest is. Hey, Sean Cullen, how you doing, Sean?
Hello, Michael.
I made some awesome food. Any advice?
Wash your hands and wipe your bums.
Who's next? Haley Wickenheiser. Kim Jong-un? I didn't even know you were alive. I don't think so. Blue Jays general manager at one time, Alex Anthopoulos. Hey, Alex, thanks so much for accepting the invitation. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Let's find out who's next. Canadian folk singing legend Charlie Acord. Hey, Casey invited you. What did you say to her?
Come on over to my house, baby.
And how about a message for the folks on the East Coast?
Sun is gonna shine.
Chael P. Sonnen, you show up at my house after stabbing me in the back twice? You know what? Get the hell out of here.
No, you're a handsome man. I was only teasing.
You think I'll be fooled by that?
I'm guessing you're...
There we go. And finally, noted Canadian magician Ian Stewart. Hey, any idea how to open a bottle when you don't have an opener? Okay, well, technically, there's many ways of using body parts to open a beer bottle. You could use your eye socket. Too painful. You could use your teeth. My dad was a dentist. He'd be pissed. And then there's the belly button. All right, let's pretend we never saw that. So what then? You hear that noise? That's the chainsaw. Okay, holding the bottle is just stupid. But Ian Stewart will go for a Guinness record 27 opened bottles in 1 minute with a chainsaw. He already owns 4 Guinness records for juggling 3 chainsaws, for juggling 1 chainsaw and 2 balls. And if you're saying, big deal, light one on fire, done and done. Hey, it is going to be really fun. I mean, as a former chainsaw juggler, I totally respect. I mean, one of the reasons why I got into the business was guys like Ian, who are so good at it. By the way, I did not show you my T-shirt, which I think I should. Can you guys see it? Phil, can you see that? Yep. Mm-hmm. Stay the Blazes home. We'll be talking to the premier of Nova Scotia in just a short time. But look who's here right now, Lenore Zan. Lenore, how are you? You and I were trying to figure out whether we've spoken before, but I feel like I know you for a number of different reasons. Good to see you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for inviting me to the party.
Yeah, it's a kitchen party a thing around where you are? Because I have to tell you, honestly, I've never heard of a kitchen party before.
You're kidding me. Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
kidding.
Here in Truro, Nova Scotia, in the hub, we are the home of the kitchen party. So is Cape Breton. And when I lived in Toronto, I used to have a ton of kitchen parties.
You had kitchen parties in Toronto?
I sure did. Yep.
This is my first experience with it, and I'm loving it so far. Although, the whole idea of the party during the pandemic is kind of outdated. But wow, I want to talk to you about some of the things that you've been experiencing. Because you have only been an MP, right, for about 10 months. Am I correct?
Actually, it hasn't even been 6 months yet.
Oh, okay. So
I'm new since last October.
So longtime MLA, now you're an MP, and you happen to be facing what is probably the most difficult time that where you are and your constituents have experienced with the awful tragedies that have made all of us heartsick across the country. But you have to deal with that. What's that been like?
Oh, it's been like living in hell. I just, right from the first morning when I woke up to find out there was an armed gunman on the loose and on his way to Truro, and that I needed to alert as many people as possible. We're all shell shocked. We are still, I think, in a state of shock and disbelief, but grieving. And then every single thing that's been happening since then, with incredible people having accidents and dying on helicopters, and the snowbirds and a missing little boy. It's been very, very traumatic for people. And thank you for doing this, because mental health is so important, and so many people are suffering already because of COVID-19. But you add something like this on top of it. Nova Scotians and in fact Canadians, I think, have been really affected by all of this.
Yeah, it's just like one thing after another thing after another thing. And, as I've been speaking about mental health publicly for about 10 years, and there's so many people out there that have been devastated by mental illness, either personally or in their family. And there's so many people, Lenore, who've never understood what it's like to suffer from anxiety or depression, because if you haven't been through it, you can't understand it. That's part of the stigma, right? Well, there's a whole lot of people in your area and in my area and right across this country who understand what anxiety is for the first time in their lives.
Sometimes things like this trigger people who have suffered from it before.
Yeah.
And so it brings back, it's like post-traumatic stress, really. It brings up stuff. And my gosh, think about all the first responders who've had to be dealing with this, the ones who had to show up when they heard that there was a gun issue going on. And then they found all these dead bodies and fires going off and explosions going off and not knowing where the gunman was or how many there were. And then, going from there for the folks that then had to take the people to the hospital, and then the hospital workers, the paramedics, the firefighters, they will probably be suffering from this for a long time. And not to mention the RCMP, who also lost somebody, and the corrections officers who lost 2 of their co-workers, one from Spring Hill Institute and one from Truro from the Nova Women's Prison. And a teacher and 2 VON nurses. So it affects the workers and the co-workers and the families and friends. And, the Maritimes, we're all very connected. And so I don't know anybody who hasn't been affected one way or another by these tragedies.
Yeah, you're speaking about all the people that were touched by it and who will be affected by it. I think that the last 2 months, the recognition for mental illness, and in particular for PTSD, has dramatically changed because, we look at frontline workers, our hospital workers, we look at a nurse in the ER or the ICU, and we say, oh my God, the things that they have seen and experienced are not what we are programmed to experience. And the words PTSD, or the letters PTSD, I think people understand it better now than they ever have.
I agree. And, as somebody who is 24 years sober myself, I just had my 24th anniversary of sobriety this past month. I know there are a lot of people who are also suffering from addictions issues, and the COVID-19 is making it worse. Some people who are at home, they don't have to go to work, and they're drinking more or using more. Or some people, are having withdrawals because they can't get the drug that their body is used to. So, I feel for all of the people out there, because it's a disease, as it's, addiction, alcoholism, all these things. It's a disease, and I feel very grateful that I was able to hit bottom and find people to help me. And I was ready and willing and able to do what they told me to do at that time in order to get sober and stay sober. So,
this is a totally dry Sick Nut Week kitchen party. So you are more than welcome to come and drink anything in our fridge, because actually nobody in my house drinks. But my brother has been in recovery, I think, for about the same amount of time as you are, and or you have been. And, so proud, knowing how tough it was, for him to do what he's done, that, I don't hesitate to talk about it because I'm damn proud of him. Okay, so you did something besides, joining us today and sharing your experience. You got a buddy of yours, right, to share some thoughts?
That's right. In fact, I'm very pleased and proud to say that the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Justin Trudeau, is coming, and he's going to be here at the party. So get ready, because he's got something to say to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Lenore. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. There's nothing quite like an East Coast kitchen party. So when I heard there was going to be one online, well, I knew I wanted to pop in. Or I guess because it's online, you pop up. Anyway, I wanted to say hello. I know the past few weeks have been especially hard, and I know not being able to get together hasn't made it any easier. But I hope tonight's virtual kitchen party brings you comfort and reminds you that you're not alone. We're in this together. So if you're struggling, reach out to someone you trust, because even though we have to stay apart, doesn't mean we can't stay connected. And that's what tonight is all about. Cette rencontre virtuelle est un excellent exemple de ce qu'on peut accomplir quand on est solidaire. Alors prenez une chaise et rassemblez-vous devant l'écran. Before I sign off, a big thank you to Michael Landsberg and Sick Not Week for bringing us all together. And to all the musicians, athletes, and entertainers who gave up their time, thank you. Now, as my friend Stephen says, stay the blazes home and enjoy tonight's entertainment.
A shout out from the Prime Minister. Hey, did you hear that, Case? I'm talking to my daughter now and my wife. A shout out from the Prime Minister. I actually met him at the Juno Awards years ago in St. John's, Newfoundland, when the Juno Awards were there, and we were all hanging out, and he just walked up and introduced himself. And, he was just a guy at that point, searching for the next direction in his life. And now look where he is. And by the way, the mental health thing, when he speaks about it, there is absolute reality for him. His wife has been outspoken about her own struggles with mental illness, and his mom is kind of a legend in the mental health sharing business. So, from the top down, mental illness is something that we in this country respect and think about. Do I remember you playing Rogue on X-Men? I thought I recognized your voice.
Well, my dad liked to kill himself when he found out I was a mutant. Yes, that's her up there at the top of my screen.
That's
She's one of my characters.
And is there an award up there as well?
Yeah, it's a bit dark, but this is my Nellie Award, which it's a little fat naked lady, and I'm very proud of her. I like to rub her belly for good luck, like Buddha. But it's an ACTRA award for Canadian actors in television, radio, and film way back when, before they had the new ones. And it was in 1986, which I won Best Actress for my very first radio drama, Saltwater Moon by David French.
Very cool. Very cool.
And proudly on my office mantelpiece.
So you said that she is a larger body type naked woman. She's on your shelf, and you brilliantly just decided, I should say this is an award because it's kind of creepy that I have this woman who's looking over my shoulder. Nicely done. Thank you. Thank you for chatting with us. Thank you for sharing your experience, and thank you for sharing your personal experience. 24 years sober is
it's a
pretty
long
amazing.
time, but it feels good. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I want people to know. And I just like to do a quick shout out to the Bible Hill Kinsmen for helping with the show and making this happen as well. Thank you so much. And Quinn McCarthy. Thank you.
Yep. It wouldn't happen without them for sure. Okay, Lenore, nice to see you.
Have a good one.
Apparently, Lenore held kitchen parties in the city of Toronto. Who knew? This is our first. This is, we're calling it Sick Nut Week Kitchen Party. This is really it's been put together by a handful of people like Quinn, as she said, and like Jamie, and I'll mention to you some of the others later on. But I mean, this has been an amazing experience, rounding people up who we think can have a great message, we think reflect your area, but also that we think can bring some fun and some entertainment, which is one of the reasons why Ian Stewart joins us. Ian Stewart is a magician, a hypnotist, a juggler, a performer, and an entertainer. How are you? Ian, how you doing, man?
Quite well, you?
Super. So yeah, you and I spoke this afternoon. Then I was online checking out what you do, and it's really cool. But you are trying to set another world record. I'll tell people what your world records currently are, but what world record are you going for today?
Well, I haven't been sober for 24 years, and I'm going to be attempting to open the most beer bottles in a minute with a chainsaw.
Okay, so what does that mean though? Like how do you open beer bottles with a chainsaw?
Well, it's not as difficult as you may think. Actually, what you do, you just take the beer bottle, and if you get the chain at the right angle, they pop right.
I see.
You're able to open them up.
And the current world record is 27. Am I correct?
27 of these in 1 minute.
Okay, so do you hope to get more than 20? Like, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine 27 is attainable. 27. Really?
28 or more would be ideal. I don't know. This is going to be the third time I've attempted to do this record. The other two times I got 25 and I got 27. I have not broken it yet, but I'm feeling good tonight.
And just to qualify this, when did you start in the chainsaw business?
Oh, chainsaw juggling I've been doing now for, I guess, about 15 years. I've had these things have taken me around the world now, juggling them with the various different world records, different TV shows, things like that. I started right out of high school. I snuck into town, right into Truro, and bought the lightest chainsaw I could buy, took it home, and hid it in my parents' garage. They didn't know it was there, and got a buddy to help me put a handle onto the back of it so I could juggle it, and learned how to do it.
Okay, you say you learned how to do it, and you were telling me not many people actually do it. But how do you do it for the first time? Which, to me seems like the biggest puzzle. Not at this point so much, because obviously you're a trained professional, but you got to juggle it for the first time sometime.
That's right. Learning it is the hard part. I take the bar and chain off when I learned it, so I was just juggling the power head. And once I got good at that, then I put the bar and chain on it, and then I didn't have it running, and then I started having it running.
So I just want to tell people you are the world record holder in juggling 3 chainsaws, and the number 105. That means that you get all 3 one time, and then you do it 104 other times.
105 throws of the chainsaw.
Okay. You're also the world record holder of 1 chain and 2 balls, and that would be the number 216. You're also the world record holder for the furthest distance traveled with chainsaw and 2 balls, which is 1,095 feet. And as you pointed out, 5 inches, Michael. Please give me credit for all of those. And also the furthest distance traveled with 3 chainsaws, 167 feet. Okay, so we're going to come back to you with your world record attempt, Guinness Book of World Records. But right now, you got to show us something, man. If I was to say 2 balls, 8 chainsaw, can you make that happen?
2 balls, 1 chainsaw. Coming up, I haven't... on quarantine. I'm a professional entertainer. I haven't actually done this, and I didn't bother practicing, so wish me luck.
Yeah, let's be ready to cut away. Okay, have you ever cut yourself?
Not badly.
I'll take that as a yes. Okay, well, you get ready for the big challenge. It's 27 beer bottles. It's 1 minute. It's
big smile on the face of the premier of this group.
Yeah, you know what? That was the premier saying, "Okay, get to me." So let's come back to Ian.
Big smile on the face of the.
And let's get to the premier right now, who's standing by.
Big smile on the face of the premier of this great province, or maybe I should say the great premier of this great province, Stephen McNeil. Stephen, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thanks, and thanks for having me.
Are you terribly frustrated that your Montreal Canadiens have really fallen behind the Toronto Maple Leafs in almost every way? Does that bother you, sir?
No, because I just keep telling myself I just count Stanley Cups.
Oh, just so you know, and I'm prepared for this argument, that you won all of those Stanley Cups except for 1 when there was only 6 teams in the league. I mean, how tough could it have been?
Well, that's 1 more than Toronto.
Yeah, that's the point.
I actually think this was going to be the year of the Leafs. And it
still could be.
And quite frankly, the shock of it all created this pandemic that we're dealing with.
So let's talk about the pandemic and how you and your province have handled it, and what it says on my shirt. And you have a mug as well, right? My shirt says "Stay the Blazes home." Yeah. What is that?
Well, it was a sign to tell Nova Scotians it was critical that they stay home and not continue to be active out in communities. It was a phrase that you would hear our parents in the folklore of our province that was telling their kids to stay the Blazes home when they didn't want them going somewhere. When you were talking to your siblings, you would make it a little bit more colorful when you were talking back and forth between your brothers and sisters. But it's one that really resonated with not only Nova Scotia but across the country. And I'm grateful that Nova Scotians heeded the call early on. They were continuing to go out in community, and the virus was really starting to take hold. And that's when we delivered that message of "Stay the Blazes home," and it caught on. And we've seen a big change in the pandemic here.
So people did listen to, that phrase. Are you, so you feel like you were heard? And I say that because there's some areas where, whether it was a governor of a state or a premier of a province, where they said exactly that, and people didn't stay home. And we see on television all different shots of people going, going out and living their lives. You feel like your message got through to people.
So Dr. Strang and I, Dr. Strang is our chief medical officer in the province. We were doing these together, and early on, we felt that people weren't taking it, taking this as serious as it should be. The virus it kills, and it's plain and simple. It's how we were delivering the message, and what was critical that people stay home. And we felt that, by and large, the vast majority of Nova Scotians are paying attention. There are always some of those who feel that they're invincible, that the rules don't apply to them, but last weekend, we lifted one of our restrictions that you could have a bubble family or bubble household. And the shots that we saw of grandparents seeing their grandchildren for the first time in weeks demonstrated to me that the vast majority of Nova Scotians stayed the blazes home. And there were some heartwarming reconnections of families, grandparents. Someone sent me this great picture of a granddad holding his grandson. And he picked him up and he was closing his eyes, and just you could see him just absorbing the feeling of his grandson for the first time in 7-8 weeks. And we saw a number of those all across our province. So I am grateful for the work Nova Scotians did, and quite frankly, following the advice of stay the blazes home.
Right. And I would say the word, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded to me like you were just about to say, and I'm really proud of them.
I am very proud of them. I'm never more so than in the past 8 weeks. I'm a proud Nova Scotian. This is the province that I was born in, the one that I consider home, where I've raised my kids. But not only the pandemic, we had a terrible tragedy. We've lost members of the Canadian Air Force in a helicopter crash. A fellow Nova Scotian, a former journalist here, was on the snowbird that was crashed a few days ago, and there's been a lot of sorrow and heartache, and I've been proud of the way Nova Scotians have expressed their frustration at times, but always wrap their arms around each other. I said halfway through this during that it's okay to cry, because it's an expression of it is one of our emotions, and quite honestly, this province was heartbroken from one end to the other through all of the things that happened to us, and it was absolutely critical that each of us found somebody to support or be supported by. And that's what happened, and that's what's been happening. And I'm really, really proud of the people of this province.
Beautifully said. And just, the whole image of a grandparent picking up their grandchild. I mean, I won't say it makes it all worthwhile, because people lost their lives, right? People have been affected forever. So I don't want to minimize it that way. But there's something that is historic about that. You see that hug, and it kind of reminds me of people coming back from war. It's like, oh my gosh, I never knew if I was going to see you again. And I think it's beautiful. And I think that your province has done an amazing job staying together. And I must be the first person that you've ever said, oh, I had 16 siblings, and I didn't go, what? 16 siblings? But I read about you beforehand, so I wasn't shocked.
Somebody asked me what would have happened when I was a kid if we'd been forced to stay home. I said, well, we had our built-in sports team, so we could have been in the fields, but my poor mother probably would not have survived it, and she probably would have said, get the blazes outdoors.
No, have you ever met anyone who had more siblings?
Oh yeah. Former Prime Minister Chrétien had 18. He was one of 18.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's others. Yeah,
it's crazy.
So I feel very lucky to be. It's a big number, but I feel very lucky to have been one of them. But I'm glad I wasn't the parent.
But if they're all kind and caring like you are, then it's probably the greatest family ever. Thanks for giving us some of your busy time, especially at this time, and a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, and thank you. And I thank you for doing this. It is important for all of us to be connected in whatever form that may be, and being allowed to be vulnerable at times. As I said in this expression, our province was very vulnerable, and everyone wrapped their arms around us here and across the country And thank you for all the great work that you're doing in speaking out about mental health. Let me tell you, future generations will be grateful of the public policy changes that your conversation and others are having across the country and across the world. And by speaking out, you're saving lives.
Thanks.
Lovely words, certainly appreciated by me. And he was talking about, vulnerability. And I don't know exactly what the right word is, but for me, it really comes down to just one thing: speaking about things that have affected my life and have hurt me in my life. Not just saying, I suffer from depression and I suffer from anxiety, but that depression in particular has really taken me down, has devastated me, and has left me with very low self-esteem. It has left me in a lot of ways unable to experience joy. And from my experience, I guess it's about 12 years ago now, I understand why people take their own lives. But I got help, and here I am, and I'm able to introduce a dear friend of mine. We have become buddies over this pandemic. That's, like something good and something bad. Bad pandemic. Sean Cullen, you and I have rekindled our friendship from many years ago.
No, it's nice to see you again. Who are you?
That's okay, because the bigger celebrity is allowed to say that to the smaller celebrity. How are you, Sean?
I'm definitely bigger than you
I wasn't meaning that, no.
All right. It's great to see you, and it's been great doing Isolation Nation. It's been so much fun. Get to meet a lot of people virtually and then sing about them usually. So It's been fun.
Sean is an award-winning comedian. Okay, tell me if I leave anything off, for real, okay? Stand-up comedian, obviously. Actor, singer. When you're, musician, you have a guitar, so you're also a writer. You've written what, 3 books?
5 novels.
5 novels?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Okay. Then there's one more thing that you're an illustrator, right? You draw.
I draw little cartoons. I'm not an exquisite artist, but I really like to do little one-panel cartoons. They're very strange and weird, but I enjoy them.
I think it's fitting that you would do something strange and weird. Okay, so here's my question: before I challenge you on a couple of songs or performers, back in the day, you were starring in The Producers, right, in Toronto, and I know from you telling me that you had an experience that really changed your life. Just tell us briefly what it was.
Well, the thing is, I don't feel like I've ever was happy ever in my life or contented. I always felt very dark inside. And doing The Producers, we were very excited to do the show. It was a big production, and we were just opened it, and the reviews were very dark and not very good for me. They didn't really like me at all. And it really took me to a place where, God, I'm really unhappy. And at the same time, I was splitting up with my partner at that time. And I was just so miserable. I'd be sitting at home weeping and just crying by myself. And then I'd have to go in and do the show and put on this incredibly funny, I believe, really funny production. And then the whole time inside, I'm just going, nobody likes me. I've blown it. I've destroyed my life. I can't get along with my wife. I'm a terrible man. I'm everything that's awful in this world. But outwardly, I have to be this incredibly ebullient, confident Max Bialystock, and just shining and emanating confidence. And it was so strange. When I finally went to a psychiatrist, I started getting therapy, and he put me on some medication, and it kept me from being too low or too high, but I still have always had to find strategies to stop myself from really degrading myself and telling myself that whatever I do is not good. Whatever I do, no one likes it, and they're just pretending. Even if they say they like it, they're probably pretending. It's such a weird man. I liken it to having the best actor in the world, like Meryl Streep or Brad Pitt or whoever, inside your head, talking to you all the time, telling you that you're worthless. And you have to take them seriously, because they're a great actor and their opinion carries weight, and it's battling that voice in your mind is one of the hardest things I've ever had to overcome.
Sean, you know who else has said what you just said?
No.
Everybody who's ever suffered from depression has spoken, when you mention it to them, at the very least, acknowledge the fact that there's this voice that they hear in their heads. And for me, it's my own voice telling me on a day like this, if I was struggling. By the way, we just got a text from Natalie Harris. She said, "How many marks on your arm?" I have one mark on my arm. Every time I have a bad day, I start the month with no marks on my arm. When I have a bad day, I put a mark on my arm. This, for me, this is success. This, great. For me, is somebody else's hope, because there was a time when I would have a mark for every day on my arm because every day was worse than the previous day. So your story is so important to share, because you know what? All across the country where people are watching, they're doing this. They're nodding their heads going, "Sean Cullen, oh my God, you're talking about me. Sean Cullen, you're in my head. Get out of my head, Sean Cullen."
Sorry, it's beautiful in there. I love it in your head.
Yeah, you know what? Get out of my head. And wait a second here. Is that Neil Young there?
Yeah, I thought Neil Young might like to sing a little song about Nova Scotia. Might be fun.
Okay.
Nova Scotia is a place. Everybody has a smile on his face. They like to drink Keith's IPA, but it's not really IPA, it's just beer. That's pretty weird.
Okay. That is, so the voice in your head when you're struggling tells you that that's no good?
Well, I'm always worried that it's a bit crap. But the great thing about being in my profession is there's always someone willing to tell you you're crap right away. Like, it's not like acting when you're on stage doing Hamlet. No one's going, "I don't believe you're sad about your father's death." Like in comedy, they're just right in your face.
Okay, quickly, one more. Let's tap into Gordon Lightfoot.
When I'm hungry on the street and I've been drinking all day, I just gotta find that special treat that makes me feel okay. Donaire, 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 donaire.
Okay.
What's meat's in there? Donaire, donaire.
Sorry. Well, I shouldn't apologize for laughing. You're a comedian, and I'm laughing.
That's my job.
Okay, so here's my challenge for you. Take as much time as you need, maximum a half hour, hopefully less. Write a song specifically for what we're doing now, and when you're ready to go, you let Phil know, who's calling the shots here, and Jamie know that that you're ready. Okay. Okay, William Shatner. We'll see you later.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, Michael. Thank you.
Oh God, that's amazing.
Have a great show.
Well, so far it's been awesome. It's amazing though. Shut up, Sean. It's my turn now. That is such a compelling story, and it's so important for others to hear that someone who's on stage, someone that is so remarkably talented, can experience the same self-esteem issues as the rest of us. That's what depression does. All right. Hey, let's go. I guess are you in Toronto, Arash?
I'm still in Toronto.
Okay. Arash Madani, from Rogers, of course, a Truro kid, if there ever was one. How, you're one of the people that wanted to do this, said it was important. Why did you want to do this?
Well, it's funny because, Michael, I mean, thank you for everything you're doing for all of this, but Toronto is now where I live, but forever Truro is home. Truro is where I grew up. Truro is part of my roots. And, you just wonder how much more Nova Scotia can take through all of this. And we just wanted to, provide a lift, provide a smile for everybody back home. One of our committee members, Lenore, I gave him a shout out. Quinn McCarthy said, it's almost like you want to give somebody a virtual hug, and hugs are so hard to come by in a pandemic. So hopefully we can have some fun tonight. And so far, we're off to a good start, man.
Yeah, Sean's funny, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He said, somebody always tells you you're crap. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, that's what Landsberg and I do for a living every day. We tell all the GMs and coaches out there and the players that they're crap.
You know what I say is you can tell anybody that they're crap and it's okay as long as you can take it. Right. And as long as you would say it to their face, like, for instance, I'm just throwing in a random name now, like Alex Anthopoulos, who was the general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. If I go on the air and I talk about Alex Anthopoulos and that he's doing a crappy job, but then I interview him and I tell him he's doing a great job, that's not acceptable. Or if he tells me I'm a crappy host, I have to be able to take that. If you can dish it out, you got to be able to take it.
And it's funny, the Blue Jays, after every game, there's a call-in show on the post-game show, and so many people, for a couple of seasons were saying to Alex, hey, you're crap, your moves are crap, your trades are crap. And then came an evening in Baltimore in September of 2015. And as we roll this video now, a lot of fans changed their tune of exactly what they thought of the former Blue Jays general manager.
Well, Marcus Stroman throws 8 innings today. He allows just 1 run. 4 starts, he's got a 217 run rate.
Pitching in some clutch games, huh? In the month of September. Did you hear what the fans were cheering? They were saying, thank you, Alex.
There it is. Strike 3. The Blue Jays can celebrate their first division title in 22 years.
That was September of 2015 in Baltimore. The Blue Jays, for the first time in 22 years, headed to the postseason. The general manager of the team at the time, now the president of baseball operations in Atlanta, is Alex Anthopoulos. He joins us on our virtual kitchen party now. Alex, welcome to the Bash. Thank you for making time for us. When you watch that again, man, and think about that night and those fans and being there with your family and so many of your colleagues, what comes flooding back to you?
Sorry, I know I was unmuted. I hadn't seen that before. Obviously, I lived it, and I had no idea there was even a clip of that. So that's the first time for me to actually live through it again. But yeah, I get the chills. Pretty emotional overall. Just, that was a blowout game. We were playing 2 that day, and I don't know, 6th or 7th inning, I'm getting all these texts and from family and this and that. And it was just the culmination of just a buildup, right? 20 years, and not that I'd been there for 20 plus years, but all of the work and just knowing how you impacted the community. And that to me was the moment when you want to be a GM, you want to make trades and do all those kind of things. But it's the first time I actually got it. And I understood what sports can do to a community, bring everybody together. And it was a really crazy emotional night. It was a relief in a lot of ways, just because you're so stressed as you're going through the playoffs, you're chasing New York, big series, and to finally get there and to finally do it was incredible. And obviously the fans, look, like you guys said, there's good and bad, but I'll tell you, Toronto fans and Canadian fans, when the bad is not to your face. So when you're going to the airport, when you're going to the store, no one's ever rude to your face. Everyone was always very kind.
Alex, it's amazing. When you think about the last 10 years in Canadian sports, I just find things have changed a lot. Maybe it was with the Vancouver Olympics. We got to celebrate our own, winning a bunch of medals in our own backyard. And then 5 years later came that Jays run. And it felt like so many people across the country went down into their basements or dug into the back of the closets, and they started bringing out some of their jackets and T-shirts from 92, 93, remembering what that was. And it felt like the whole country came together with the Blue Jays that summer.
Yeah, you know what? It completely did. And, at the time, I'd been told if we win, if the team has success, you're going to see unbelievable results across Canada and so on. And you're 100% right. I mean, it was just the whole country, the whole community. I remember, my kids were young at the time. They were 5 and 3. Going to their school, I'd walk. We were a block and a half away. We were young in Lawrence area. And everyone was wearing Jays gear and hats. And there's a sense of pride that comes with that. And even, the places in our community, we'd go get food, we'd go to an Italian spot and go get takeout and so on. And they were telling us after the fact that there were nights that people would call them and say, "Do you have the game on?" And when the games were on, if they didn't have the game on, no one was going to come because everyone was glued to their TVs. So knowing how everybody banded together and everybody became a fan, and in a little bit of the same way, watching the Raptors from afar. I was in Atlanta, but it felt like, and it may have been a lot more so because they won the entire thing, it felt like the same thing. Everybody having that sense of pride and so on. And I remember where I was when Kawhi made that shot. I told my wife, "We got to watch this. This is a moment." I remember talking to my kids, and no matter where you were as a Canadian, there was a great sense of pride. And I would think, not being a fan of the Jays necessarily because I was right in the middle of it, I would think it probably felt a lot in the same way.
You mentioned the Raptors. That was the team you were a fan of when you were living in Toronto and were the GM. What was it like just being a fan for once and watching this team go all the way and win it all?
Oh, it was great. And when I moved to Toronto, I was much more of a fan. I was a scouting coordinator. I made no money. I had a roommate at the time. We were massive Raptors fans. Team was not very good. We'd get $12 Sprite zones, and it was easy. We lived in a condo on Front in Blue Jays Way, and we would go to as many games as we could. We'd watch NBA TV, Raps TV, things like that. And as I've moved to LA, I try to get into the teams in the community, and obviously moving to Atlanta as well. I feel it's important for me. I work in the community. Our fan bases are the same, so I try to support the Hawks the same way. But no doubt, come playoff time, the only Canadian team, the Raptors. There's a great sense of pride, and even being in the clubhouse with some of the clubhouse guys and the staff, and being able to joke and talk trash a little bit. It was a lot of fun.
Josh Donaldson was the MVP in 2015. Josh is a unique character with a unique personality. What's the best JD story you got for us, Alex?
Oh man, there are so many of them. I don't even know. Actually, there's a few that come to mind, but he's brash. He's confident. He wins no matter where he goes. I remember 2015. We're in Fenway Park. You've been there plenty of times. The manager's office is tiny. It's the size of a closet. Me and John Gibbons were sitting in there, and I don't know. Josh came in and he would go back and forth and so. I remember he walked in and he pointed at me and he goes, "I'm going to win you Executive of the Year," and he pointed at Gibby. "I'm going to win you Manager of the Year," and that's just who he was, And there were times even last year in Atlanta. I remember Nick Markakis got hurt. Ender Inciarte told me this story. He got hurt. He's out of the lineup, and Inciarte had to jump back in the game, and he basically grabbed him, stared him in the face, and said, "Lock something in." So, he's just a winner. He's a gamer. He makes everybody around him better, and it's not a fluke that he gets to the playoffs each year.
When we were texting this week, you said, "Hey, have you thought about bringing Gibby on? Have you thought about bringing the old manager on?" I said, "Well, if we got to get Gibby on Zoom, he's probably going to
he can't spell Zoom.
Space station or something." Look, John Gibbons has a way about him, from the southern drawl to the way he kind of waddles up to the mound to make a pitching change. What's it like working with him every day, man?
He's great. And look, there were times we butted heads and battled and so on. He's absolutely his own man. But, he's good. I mean, he's, and those, I think those that get to know him and be around him, before we brought him back, I had talked to some players about him, former players that had been with him, current players, just to get some feedback and so on. And to a man, you never had issues in the clubhouse with him. Everything was taken care of. There's a lot of things that he took care of behind closed doors with some big names and some stars. And everything was always kept together. And beyond that, I thought the in-game was great. And he works well with anybody he comes across. So, from that standpoint, I think he was underrated. It was nice to finally see him get his due, get into the playoffs. And everyone saw who he was as a human being, as a man. And, beyond that, what he can do day in and day out.
Alex, you mentioned people always talked about what would happen when the Jays got good and what it would do across Canada. And obviously the television numbers went through the roof. People from coast to coast to coast were watching. Nova Scotia is a huge baseball province. They love their Blue Jays. We appreciate you coming on, but I just wondered what your message is to the people kind of watching right now with everything that they've been through.
Yeah, I get the same thing. I get the chills when you bring that up. It's just obviously following from afar with what's gone on. I knew, I haven't really spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia. I didn't know about Truro, obviously Halifax and so on. And, you never think something like this could happen in Canada. It's just not something I was just in shock. I was in Atlanta and you don't want to believe it. And, trying to learn more about the community and so on, the resiliency, what it's been through. That's why when you asked me to do something like this, it was an easy yes. It was a quick yes. But the world's going through so much right now. You layer in everything that Nova Scotians have gone through in the last month and so on. I think all of us are here to lend our support, and especially as Canadians as well. This is what we do. We band together. We help. There's a tremendous sense of pride. I mean, I have more pride as a Canadian now that I live in the U.S. Not that I didn't, but I appreciate it more now. And when there's whether it's 1%, if there's anything I can do to help and so on, I'm certainly glad to do it.
Well, we appreciate it, man. It's good to see you again. It has been a minute. Hopefully the next time we gather will be at a baseball stadium somewhere.
All right, man. And for you, I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Alex.
All right.
Michael is the former general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. He understands the Canadian part. And I thought that was a great point that he made, is that as Canadians, we lend a helping hand. We help try and lift somebody up off the mat. Oh, we got to unmute Michael.
He was even speaking to you. I was mesmerized by his beard. I have to tell you, I'm watching and it's growing and growing. And by the way, I can still see him. I bumped into him a couple of years ago in the airport. And you know what? It was just like, I remember saying afterwards, wow, what a really, really good guy. And not a surprise that he would step up and that he would be here, because Alex Anthopoulos, good guy. Okay, let's continue rolling. And by the way, Bible Hill Kinsman, so much of what we're doing here today is so important to so many different people across the country, because it's our chance to, basically say, hey, Nova Scotia, East Coast, it's not like we can take your pain because you can't do that, obviously, but we can say we acknowledge your pain. We understand what you're going through, even though we have not experienced it with you. And the Bible Hill Kinsmen came together and really helped us make this thing happen. So thanks to them. Okay, let's get some music now. We heard Gordon Lightfoot and Neil Young already. How cool is this? Who else gets Gordon Lightfoot and Neil Young on together? And right now, it's a guy that you all would know. And when I say you all, I'm talking about folks in the East Coast, because Charlie Acorn is kind of a legend out there. Charlie Acorn, I don't think you can even say what kind of music he plays. It's a combination of a whole bunch of different things. He's an award winner. And the thing about Charlie Acorn is his passion. You watch him now, the energy, the passion, he conveys something that I think is hugely important. And for a musician, it's irreplaceable. Watch him and you'll know this is genuine. The World Around Me, Charlie Acorn. Take it, Charlie.
Hi, everyone. It's Charlie Acorn here. Thanks so much for having me be a part of tonight's little kitchen party. This is so much fun. It's nice to get a chance to play a little bit of music for you. And as most of you know, I'm born and raised in Truro, Nova Scotia. CEC proud, Cougars, let's go. Yeah, 10-0, 1997. That was the year, baby. That was the magic year. I still call Nova Scotia home after all these years of touring and traveling, and very proud to live here in Nova Scotia. And so I want to sing a little song for you now. And this is a tune called The World Around Me. I hope you enjoy it.
Brothers outside playing in the pouring rain. We grow to be his own men someday. Footprints left in the sands of time, get washed away by the storms of life. If I find myself down on my knees, would you help me stand again? If the world around me starts to break down, would you cover me? Ooh. Children fighting wars they never started. Mama's praying a boy will come home. Who's come down the line? Somebody fight you. It through the crowd and her boy went down. If I found myself down on my knees, would you help me stand again? If the world around me starts to break down, would you cover me? Yeah. Oh, my, yeah. Oh, Lord. There's compassion in the heart of the living. Never dies when the soul passes on. And it don't matter what sheepskin you're wearing, 'cause underneath we all walk the same, yeah. And if I find myself down on my knees, would you help me stand again? If the world around me starts to break down, would you cover me, Lord? Cover me, yeah. Oh, Lord, Lord. Ooh. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the stream.
Well, the reviews are in. My wife just said he's good. Yeah, that's a lot of music coming from one guy for sure, and a lot of passion and a lot of energy, and clearly a love not only for singing and performing, but for the area as well. Speaking of a guy who delivers every time we ask him, Sean Cullen, welcome back. I know that you sort of gave us the knock and said, hey, I'm ready to go. It should be mentioned that we do the show every day called Isolation Nation, which our goal obviously is to help people who are part of this nation with the isolation that they're experiencing. And every day you do at least one song for us. And I think that is the best gift that anyone has ever personally done for me when it comes to this charity for sure. All right, Sean, what do you got? Okay, you're muted. Let's wait for it. Okay, hold on one sec. You're doing that, aren't you?
I'm muted by the host.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What's going on? This is.
You know what they said? They said, you know what? Sean actually isn't that good. Let's mute him.
That's what they said to me. That's been happening to me for my whole life. But here we go. I've got a song that it's called Kitchen Party. I just made it up. We'll see how it goes.
All right, thanks.
Well, everybody's having fun at the kitchen party. There's lots of fun for everyone. at the kitchen party. Uncle Jim is wearing a wig at the kitchen party. And Aunt Sally just went and married a pig at the kitchen party. Uncle Bob just broke his leg dancing at the kitchen party. And the family dog just laid an egg at the kitchen party. Mama's frying up a flounder at the kitchen party, but I'd rather have a quarter pounder at the kitchen party. Billy Jones took out his teeth at the kitchen party, and he used them to chew on Uncle Keith at the kitchen party. Well, everybody's having fun at the kitchen party, and there's lots of fun for everyone at the kitchen party. What do you think?
I loved it. Tell me the characters again. I'm trying to remember. Uncle, who broke his leg?
It was Uncle Bob.
Right. And who married a pig?
That was Aunt Sally.
Okay. And there was one other. Who was wearing a wig?
That was Uncle Jimmy. Jimmy liked to wear a wig.
You know Uncle Jimmy. You know, he's fun, but he's a nut.
Yeah. No, I think Billy Jones took out his teeth and then he chewed on Uncle Keith with them. That was creepy.
Thank you so much, Sean. That was really funny, and I wouldn't say better than expected, because I've come to expect a lot of brilliance from you. And I'm not working from notes from this show, but from my memory. There's only one thing I wrote down: share, and you did, and that makes this all the better. So thanks for doing this, and I'll talk to you soon. That's Sean Cullen, award-winning actor, stand-up comedian who is dedicated to sharing, and certainly dedicated to entertaining with his sharing. Okay, so obviously there's two dimensions to what we're doing tonight. On one hand, there's the fun of what you just saw, more fun to come. By the way, Hayley Wickenheiser is going to join us. All she happens to be is the greatest, I was going to say the greatest female hockey player ever, but that, I think, diminishes her accomplishment. She's just a great player who is in the Hockey Hall of Fame. She will join us, assuming that she can squeeze us in between patients, because she is in third year medical school. But like I said, there's two dimensions to this. On one hand, there's the fun and frolic, and on the other hand, something that's deadly serious and painful. And we want to understand better what has been going on and how people have been coping with it. Let's welcome two first responders and one person who has had to respond in other ways. First of all, Dave McNeil is the police chief at Truro Police Services. We'll talk to the chief. Trevor Linz is a volunteer firefighter, and Dave Ritzy is the MLA from the area. Let's start first of all with Dave McNeil, police chief. Dave, how you doing?
Good, Michael. Thanks very much for having me on tonight.
Hey, it's a pleasure. You're really dark, man. Okay, I'm going to teach you the first thing. The first thing that you learn when you do television is backlighting is not your friend. Now, fortunately, it's not hurting you because we can't see your face at all anyway. I can't. Can I make it out? Yeah, perfect. I can see the outline, but that's okay. So thanks for doing this, Chief. And look at you.
Hey, there you go. How's that?
Look at that. Hey. Look at that. Hey. So Chief, let's take this to the place that none of us wanted to be taking it to, and that is the awful string of tragedies that you folks in Nova Scotia have experienced at the same time of the ongoing tragedy called, the pandemic. So, one of your jobs as a police chief is to handle your staff, the people that work for you, not only their physical health and their physical well-being, but their mental well-being as well. How much of a challenge has that been over the last couple of months?
Yeah, it's been a challenge. There's no doubt about it. This area in particular has been hit with a lot of tragedy. The pandemic was the beginning, and then we've had a more than our share in this part of Nova Scotia for sure. As the chief, I'm very proud of our officers and our staff for the outstanding work that they do on a daily basis to keep our community safe. I've got a fantastic team, really dedicated. And our community is so supportive. The business community, bringing food to the office, citizens and public members reaching out, sending cards of thanks, emails, messages on our Facebook page. So you really feel special to work in such a great community in a great province.
Chief, I know that the shooting, I don't even know the right words to describe it, that horrific time in everybody's lives that was touched, and to some extent everybody who even heard about it. What kind of impact has that had? Now, you're not specifically in the area where that took place, but you're close, and obviously you guys are all kind of family. First responders are all family.
It's been extremely difficult on everybody. It's a small community, and we may not police that part of the county, but some of our officers live out there. My in-laws live out that way, so this has touched everybody in some way. It's been very troubling. It's been very difficult to get through. But I think what keeps us going is the need to serve the public, serve the community, and protect the public. But the public's been so supportive and so embracing, and everybody's just been rallying together and trying to get through this tough time.
Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for your duty to the community, and from those of us across the country, just thank you for keeping the ship upright, which I know has been really difficult.
Appreciate it, Michael. Thank you.
That is the chief, Dave McNeil, the police chief at Truro Police Services. And now let's go to Trevor Linz. Trevor is a volunteer firefighter. The majority of firefighters across Canada are volunteers, but volunteer means nothing, I guess, except on payday. Volunteer means that you commit yourself to the cause and you commit yourself to public service, and really, I always marvel at firefighters. You guys, you folks run in when we're all running out. Trevor, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's fitting. I just got a text that even while you and I are having this discussion now, there's a large forest fire that's happening around Porter's Lake. And unfortunately, it seems like there's just one thing after another. But anyway, let's talk about you and how you're doing and how your fellow firefighters are doing in what obviously is probably the toughest time of your life.
I think we're doing pretty good here. We weren't hit so much directly as others. We're about 45 minutes away from the Portapique area, but it definitely does take a toll on us here, as well as we are a brotherhood, we'll call it.
And you obviously speak to people. You speak to your own colleagues in that area who speak to people as well. What has it been like for first responders, who were there, who were part of that? And do you think that anything in our lives possibly prepares us for that?
No, I don't think so. No, you can never have enough training to prepare yourself for what those men and women seen that night.
Are you taking care of your mental health? I mean, that is kind of to some extent what this is all about today. That's my dog Wrigley, who I told him, look, you got something to say, Riggs, you say. But are you taking care of your own mental health? And I mean, not just this week or this month or this year, but as a first responder, as a firefighter, you see things that if you don't share them and talk about them, you bury them, and that never ends up well.
You do bury them. Yeah, you are right. I think the big thing is we all try to put the strong face on. People call us when they're in their worst. They're scared. They're looking for their lives. So we try and put the strong face on. But at the end of the day, there is help for you. So don't be scared to ask for it.
One of the things that I know, that because here in Toronto, I've done a lot of work as a charity with Toronto Fire Services, with Chief Matthew Pegg. And one of the things that obviously has been dominant in firefighting and first responding has been, you got to stay tough. And the perception has been always that toughness relates to never speaking from the heart, never talking about what's bothering you. Are you comfortable enough to be able to tell the people around you, the people in your life, hey, I want to talk about something I saw?
I don't think I was a few years back, but over the past couple of years, it's something that I've made an effort in being better at. Am I great at it? No. Am I getting better? Yes.
You're a volunteer firefighter, which means you have another full-time job, and you're at your job. Is this the way it works? That your place of employment, they understand that you're a volunteer firefighter, and when the call comes in, you're out of there right away. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough that I'm self-employed. So when the pager goes off, there's not really too many people I have to ask permission to leave, as long as I'm within an area where it's not too far of a drive or a distance to get to the certain call.
Trevor, just as we wrap this up, one of the things that when you just mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, wow, just the unknown of what you're getting into. At the best of times must be incredibly challenging. But at this time with COVID-19, you can't necessarily prepare yourself physically with the right tools and the right equipment. If you're going in to fight a fire, for instance, that can't be your concern. How have you handled the fact that there's this awful virus out there and you're one of the few people that can't socially distance?
It's definitely hard. You do your best to social distance or self-isolate and do what you have to do as per public health. But when the pager does go off, it does pay a toll on your mental ability, because you are going to an unknown situation with sometimes unknown personnel.
On behalf of everybody who's watching right now, thank you. Thank you for sharing today. But in a lot of ways, just thank you, period.
Thank you for having me.
Trevor Lindsay is a volunteer firefighter, and I think that the world is evolving to the point where a guy like Trevor and his colleagues, are at least invited to share. Dave Ritchie is MLA from the area, and it's a pleasure to meet him for the first time. Dave, how you doing?
Good, thank you, Michael, for having me on tonight. This is excellent. It's being on with two first responders and Chief McNeil and Trevor Lyons, I feel very privileged.
Now, you were, talk about being thrown into a difficult situation. You were elected in a by-election about 2 months ago, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's recently elected on March 10th. I got to meet all my colleagues on March 11th, and then everything went sideways after that with the pandemic. And then a month later, tragedy struck, and it was very unfortunate for our area.
And how has that impacted you? Your job, one of your jobs as an elected representative, is to bear the brunt of people's sorrow and hardship and frustration and sometimes anger. I can't imagine how tough your job has been.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I shouldn't say it's tough. It's been interesting learning right on the job. I'm used to hearing from people, listening to people. And I think it's important at this time that we provide them with support. I have great support at home with my family and friends and colleagues as well. And our community is so strong and resilient. There is some anger out there and some frustration over that ordeal, but even now, like just the 3 or 4 other incidents that just happened is a struggle as well. But my role is there to listen and support our community.
You were a hockey coach, right, in the Maritime Junior Hockey League. What flipped the switch for you and said, I want to change the direction of my life?
It was, I haven't coached for a bit, but what sort of flipped the switch? My grandfather was the MLA here from 68 to 75. So it was inbred in my family at some point when I was going to take that step, and the opportunity was right. We had some good momentum. We have a good leader, we got a good team as well. And I love our community. I really do. And love the people here. And I wanted to make sure that they had good representation. This was an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I'm sure that, as most people will do who are kind-hearted, you minimize the effect on you, but I'm sure it's been devastating. Thanks, Dave. Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Michael. And if I can, I'd like to thank the Bible Hill Kingsman, Quinn McCarthy reaching out, and Drew Douglas as well. Jimmy Carroll, my good friend Arash Madani, I can't forget him. Thanks again for reaching out, and good luck the rest of the way, and to all the guests tonight. Have a lot of fun.
Thanks. Yeah, you know what? Everybody in your area is owed a lot more than fun, but fun is about the best we can do right now. But also, we can entertain you. And this guy, I guess it's probably like 4 or 5 years ago now. I was hosting a mental health awards thing, and one of the winners was a guy named Rob Nash. And I think I had heard of Rob, but I had never met him before. And, I feel very passionate about mental health. And, I think I'm a pretty decent speaker about it. But then I introduce this guy, Rob Nash, and he gives an acceptance speech. And I go, oh my God, he is so good, so unique in the way he frames his struggles. When we were talking about doing this, it's like, we got to get Nash on. Rob Nash, how are you, man? Okay, let's, I'm not sure we could hear that.
You got me there?
Yeah, we got you. We got you right now. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Props to you and your crew. Like, doing this live, any event is tough, but in everybody's different homes, well done.
No, it's all me. Just so you know, it's all me. I'm switching. I'm pushing the buttons.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a passion project for a lot of people. So your story, very briefly. I mean, your story has so many twists and turns. But you had a car accident where you were dead, right? I mean, you were unlucky enough, obviously, to be in that position, but lucky enough that somebody happened to see it and came to try and help you.
Yeah, he resuscitated me. He had just taken a first responders course. And he held my head together after resuscitating me, waiting for the ambulance to get there. And they rebuilt my skull with metal and my shoulder and collarbone, and a lot of surgeries. Woke up from a coma, relearning a lot of things. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5". I played every sport, and then I woke up from that accident and obviously couldn't play sports anymore. And man, I went through a pretty dark time myself, 2 years, where everyone threw all the cliches at me. Like, whenever tragedy happens, people throw stuff at you. They'll say that, oh, it was fate, or the big one people would always say to me is everything happens for a reason. And man, that made me go even to a darker place. Now there's a reason for this happened to me. Like, I went to the why me, and I didn't want to be alive. I was suicidal. And then one day somebody walked up to me and he said this simple thing to me, and it changed my life. He said, "Hey, Rob, you think everything happens for a reason, right?" I'm like, "That's what everyone tells me." He goes, "I think I know the reason you were hit by a semi-truck." I'm like, "What is it?" He goes, "You and your friends were going too fast down an icy road." And I was like, wow. And that set me free. I realized we're not puppets. We can make our own decisions. And sometimes we'll have a bad day. It's going to happen.
And that was how long ago?
That was when I was 17, grade 12. And I'm still having surgeries. They just rebuilt my head again. But I still hear these cliches all the time. And I got to a place where I was like, man, not a lot of people get a second chance. And I was like, I want to do something with a second chance. And I'm like, I remember screaming at the sky. I was like, I want to do something that matters, right? And I thought I'd hear a voice telling me to like move to Africa and build a well. And what I heard clear as day, you get those promptings sometimes, clear as day, as I felt that I should phone the semi driver that hit me and tell him I was alive. And it took a while getting his number from the cops. And finally, a big trucker from the US answered the phone, and he goes, I told him, I'm calling, I was in that car accident. He didn't know I'd come back. And he hadn't driven a vehicle since that day. And we talked, and he was set free. And it did something for him, but it did something for me. I was like, that felt good. Like, I wanted to do something like that again. It was like a craving I had. And so I decided, man, I want to tell my story. So I started playing music to tell story, wondering how many other people are like me, maybe with those dark thoughts in their head, not talking about it, not getting help. So I started playing music, and we did our first album. It sounded okay. After fourth album, got a big record deal, had a few top 10 hits on the radio. And then one day I got offered a tour to go through prisons like Johnny Cash, youth detention centers, reserves, schools, telling my story and performing songs. So I ripped up my record deal to do this tour. And this tour has been going for over 9 years now. We performed from coast to coast to coast in Canada, talking about songs about this tragedies that people go through and the triumphs. And we've seen people have massive breakthroughs. It's been so fulfilling.
Yeah, you have tattooed names on your arm, right?
Yeah. So just on the topic of suicide alone, after our shows, we've had over 900 students have walked up to their counselors, teachers, social workers, and actually said, here, I don't need my suicide note anymore. And they hand their suicide notes over and they get help. And a lot of them send us pictures of their tattoos, of our lyrics tattooed on their arms or their, somewhere on their body. And it meant so much to me. So I took all the signatures from the suicide notes we were given, and I tattooed them. My arms are covered with all the signatures from the bottom of those suicide notes. Because I remember what that feels like when you go through tragedy. You feel like you're alone. And that's why we tell stories. That's why when you asked me on the show, I was like, yeah, man, first of all, I love playing on the East Coast. Haven't been there in a couple of years, but whenever I hear about tragedy, it's like you hear those cliches, and I was like, yeah, if we can be a part of this, that'd be fantastic.
Well, you're obviously more than just a part of it. You are it. And for me, I've heard your story probably a half dozen times, and I've asked you questions which led into your story a couple of times before. But that part about people coming up to teachers after you've been in the school, saying, this was my suicide note, I can tear it up, is so incredibly. It's just really touching, man. I know you got to play some music for us. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, it's going to take me a second. I got to grab my guitars and get my bandmates. Again, technology is pretty amazing. I've got a guy playing violin, cello, and a guitarist out in Vancouver. They're going to join me. So I got to do some setting up, and we will get back to you in a second. Just give me 35 seconds. How about that?
35 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that people
I think we can do that.
Cliche.
35 seconds. Okay. I can fill for 35 seconds. If I can't, then I've been in the wrong career all along. I mean, there's a lot that's unique about Rob Nash, and it doesn't even start or end with the 2 B's at the end of his name, which have really messed me up, man. I don't get it. I don't understand why you got 2 B's at the end of your name. But whatever that extra B is for, I would say you're a beauty for sure. All right, 35 seconds done. Let's go to Rob Nash and find out what he's going to play for us.
Yeah, one thing that people often say, a cliche that people often throw out when you go through tragedy, they say, don't worry, the pain will go away. But if you've ever been through tragedy where you've lost somebody, that's not always the case. The pain doesn't always go away. In fact, it shouldn't, because you're never going to forget that person. But listen closely. We've been from coast to coast to coast in Canada, hearing some of the most tragic stories. And one thing that we always say is, the pain may never go away, but neither does the strength. And if you wake up in the morning looking for pain, you will find it. But if you get up in the morning looking for strength or hope or help, you can find that too. But sometimes that's the daily decision. And we wrote a song about that, and I'm going to perform it right now. I'm going to bring in my bandmates from Vancouver. This is Caleb, Anthony, and Brian are going to be joining me on this one. So this song talks about dealing with struggles in life. Whether you've been through tragedy, you've lost somebody, or you're fighting off addiction or suicidal thoughts, you don't try to make it through a week or a month or a year. You say, just for today. This is our song. It's called The Thief of Colors. I wish I could see the world like it used to be, but you painted it gray. Yeah, you painted it gray. Wish I could take the advice that was given to me, but I threw it away. Yeah, I threw it away. Sometimes I don't know why, I just can't say goodbye. There's still a piece that craves you. The wasted days and nights all turn to black and white, 'cause you're the thief of color. So just for today I'll wake without you. Just for today I'll breathe without you. Just for today I'll have to find the strength to stay away. Just for today. I wish I could say it was taken from me, but I gave it away.
without you, and I'll breathe without you, and I'll have to find the strength to stay away. Just for today, I'll wait without you. Just for today, I'll breathe without you. Just for today, I'll have to find the strength to stay away. Just for today, I'll wait without you, and I'll breathe without you, and I'll have to find the strength to stay away. I wish I could see the world like it used to be, but you painted it gray. You're the thief of colors.
Rob Nash, that was absolutely terrific as you continue to watch this virtual kitchen party through the Sick Not Weak platform. We thank Michael Landsberg for his terrific job hosting today. Look, what's gone on in Nova Scotia over the last little while has just been overwhelming. You just wonder, it's one thing after another, and we just wonder, when will this thing ever kind of slow down? I want to welcome in Jonathan Torrance, who needs no introduction to our audience and for so many watching. If you're old enough like me, you remember him from Street Sense and Jono Vision, and of course, Trailer Park Boys, Mr. D, Letterkenny Problems, and the rest. Jonathan, great to see you, man. Thanks for making time. How's life treating you right now through all of this, man?
Well, I thought in typical East Coast fashion, Arash, you were going to ask me how's the weather out there, because that's the opening volley of every East Coast conversation ever. Life's treating me pretty well, all things considered. You know, it's first of all, in terms of COVID-19 and being home, we love having our girls home. We've been homeschooling. Their relatives have been doing guest lectures via FaceTime, and it's actually been a real nice bonding experience for us. And I almost feel guilty saying that out loud, that we're enjoying this time, because I know it certainly hasn't been easy for everybody from a COVID standpoint alone, not to mention the other incidents that have happened in our community. And I say our because I know you're from out here. You went to high school with my wife.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with the area. You know how tight-knit we are as a community. And it's been intense. You know, this didn't happen to me. It happened near me. It involved people that I knew, and I'm sure you knew as well. And you do feel helpless at a time when you can't gather the way you normally would. But I had an epiphany today as I was thinking about it. And, you know, there isn't much of a bright side about this global pandemic. But one thing that it has allowed us to do, I think, is we live in a acronym emoji universe. And we're used to just kind of reacting instantly as things happen, and LOL, OMG, happy face emoji. You can't.
Some of the worst things in the world, by the way. All of those things you just mentioned might be some of the most annoying things in my life.
They're terrible.
Yes.
But you can't emoji your way out of something of this magnitude. So something that we have at this particular moment is actually time. And you need to sit with this stuff and process it and let it hit you and think about it. And imagine if, for example, these incidents that happened April 18th and 19th happened, and then you had to be at your desk Monday morning at 9 without even really ingesting something of such a magnitude. So if there is one little bright light in this, it's that I think it's been nice for people to actually have the time as families to gather and process.
Yeah, I think that these are all really important points. Look, everybody mourns differently, as we've come to understand. Everybody deals with tragedy differently. Everybody deals with adversity differently. But really, since mid-March, so many people have been in the same boat. You know, often if tragedy strikes, it hits a family, it hits a neighborhood, it may hit a community. At the largest sense, you know, it may hit a province or a country. Man, the world has stopped. the world has absolutely had to hit pause, and it's so interesting how differently everybody deals with it. And I appreciate you saying there can be a little bit of a silver lining. I think all of us have had some tough days, some dark days, and with Nova Scotia, that week after Portapic was just so crushing. But I think it's also important to try and find ways to make the most of opportunities given. Does it mean you reconnect? Does it mean you find a way to reach out to people that you haven't spoken with in a while and see how they're doing, or actually read a book, or spend some time for yourself? Jonathan, I think all those things matter, and all those things are important, man.
Well, I noticed that in our little microcosm of our house, we linger at the dinner table a little longer. No one really has anywhere to go.
Yeah.
We chat a little more. That part is nice, and it's not. It's too soon to talk about a bright side for so many people around here, and there are guilt issues around that as well. You think, this didn't happen to me. It did happen to other people. I feel guilty that I'm enjoying this day. And I think in terms of cliches, like the weather out here, if you don't like it, it'll change in 15 minutes. I think grief can be like that too. It's okay to be sad in the morning and feel the sunshine on your face in the afternoon and be happy about that. There is no playbook for this, but the one thing I know to be true is that it takes time. And so that's one thing we have right now.
We certainly do. What are you working on these days? Everybody's known you from so many projects. Do you have anything that was in the works before this hit, or that could be coming down the pike?
Well, I don't want to turn it into an opportunity to pitch my upcoming work. It feels garish, but I have been working on a record with Jeremy Taggart from Our Lady Peace. And so that's been a really fun challenge to flex a different set of muscles. Never imagined in my life I would do something like that. And I think my wife and I were having this conversation today when COVID first started and we were locked down at home. The very first thing I did with the last few hours was I ran out and got some wood at the hardware store. I had all these projects that I wanted to do because I didn't want to have idle hands. So I've actually been more creative, and my output has been higher than it maybe ever has been. Maybe because I'm trying to propel myself forward and have something to look forward to get myself through these days that can sometimes be long. But I think that's important too, to have lots of diverse projects, which I have. I'm representing the T-Dot.
There it is.
Lowercase T-Dot. Got my Truro Bearcats hat here.
Okay.
Where did you grow up? What part of town, by the way?
I went to St. Mary's Elementary School, which no longer exists on King Street. I think they've come those. I went to Truro Junior High, which I believe ended up getting condemned because of
your time there.
Because of my time there.
Yeah, I read that.
So thankfully, CEC is still up and operational. We haven't closed that place down. I actually worked for a CFL team, and that place folded too. So
dang,
a lot of those.
You're bad news.
Yeah, I'm bad news. Although I did cover the Raptors run to the championship, and they lifted a trophy. So at least
I've heard of them. That was good.
Yeah, they did okay.
One thing I would like to say, because I suspect our time is winding up, is oftentimes in moments like this, you don't know what to do, and it feels like there's nothing you can do that matters or that is a contribution of any kind. And I've had the mantra, when you don't know what to do something, going through my head. And I was thinking about Hayley Wickenheiser, and I don't know if there is an atrocity or a fire or a flood in the last decade at least that she hasn't been a first responder on the ground and in with her sleeves rolled up and helping. And so I think what would Hayley do is a good question that we should all ask ourselves in moments like this, because there's a good chance that it's the right thing to do.
That's Jonathan Torrance. He has worked a day or two in television. He knows how to transition. He knows how to segue, and he knows how to set up the next guest. Hey, Jonathan, great to see you, man. Thanks for making time tonight, and we'll look forward to that new album whenever.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this, guys. It means a lot.
You got it. Mr. Landsberg, let's go back to you because, could Hayley Wickenheiser be joining us next? Could that actually be coming down?
Well, as Jonathan just said, if there's an issue, if there's a need for somebody to step up, Hayley's going to be there. So let's randomly just find out. Hayley, are you there?
No, I thought she was.
Well, maybe she's not the great Haley Wickenheiser after all. Maybe she's turned her back on this show. Obviously not the case, nor would I ever make that suggestion, but she would expect nothing less from me. Hey, Haley, how you doing?
Hey, guys. Hi, Michael. Hey, how's it going? Nice talk, by the way, Jonathan. That was impressive.
Yeah, it was great. And so how you doing? And tell me, where are you now? I should let people know that I've turned to Haley in the last couple of months a number of times saying, hey, can you come on? Can you chat? Can you talk about mental health? Can you talk about what it's like in a hospital? Haley's in third year medical school. She has been in Toronto, I guess, doing different rotations. Where are you now, Haley?
I'm actually still in Toronto, Michael. I'm about to actually drive across Canada to make my way back to Calgary in 2 weeks to start my rotations in the hospitals in Calgary. And I go back and forth between Calgary and Toronto to finish up my last year of med school. So if I fly, I have to quarantine. So I'm going to drive. It's going to be good.
If you say so, if driving to Calgary is appealing to you, then I say you go for it. But so one of the things you and I were sharing, or you were sharing, and I was asking the questions, is the experience of being in hospitals. Now, I know as a third year medical student, when things really got grim and bad, rotation stopped, right? But you were in there, you took care of someone I know who had COVID-19. What's the experience been like for you, and how are you doing mentally?
Well, yeah, thanks for asking. It's just hearing the last few guests, Jonathan and the first responders that were talking as well, I did see the start of COVID start to ramp, and then they pulled trainees out for a variety of reasons. So it was kind of a bummer not to be able to be there to do the job you signed up for, I suppose. But on the other hand, I found myself, like Jonathan said, with a lot of free time and had to figure out something to do to stay busy. So it was a very uneasy first couple of weeks as this pandemic kind of came on, and seeing sick patients come into the hospital, watching young people be intubated, and just watching this COVID thing come across. It has been definitely an eye-opening experience, and just a really hard time for everyone, myself included. There's days that I have waves of anxiety that come and go, and the way that I try to handle it is I train every day, just like I was still playing. Like I love to road ride or ride my bike a lot. I lift in the gym that I have here, and then I also try to help others. I think by helping others, you help yourself. It's kind of this sort of a selfish endeavor as well, but a positive one, I think.
Haley, I guess, at a time with COVID-19, I guess you really find out whether you're committed to being a doctor for the right reasons, right? I mean, now all of a sudden it's not driving into your office or into the hospital and saying, okay, let's get on with the job. But now it's kind of, okay, I got to risk everything because I'm committed to doing what it is I signed up for.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm happy to do that when I go back and have the opportunity. I know I'll have to be wearing a mask 12 hours a day, and talking to some of my friends that are in the ICU and in the emerge, they talk about how tiring it is to take on and off PPE all day long, and just be so vigilant to protect yourself. But I don't think there isn't one person I've come across in healthcare through this pandemic that has complained. They're all very happy to do what they're doing. They feel relatively safe if they have the PPE to wear. And it's kind of why you sign up for the thing. I mean, we've been through, the Ebola, and someone with meningitis can come in. It's very contagious or very infectious, tuberculosis, all these types of things. So you get used to managing.
I think last time I talked to you, I was wearing a T-shirt which said "Conquer COVID-19," which was something that you initiated because of the challenges for frontline workers to have the appropriate equipment to prevent them from catching the virus, which is, it's kind of like saying, okay, we're going to raise money to buy bulletproof vests for police officers, right? Like, it's something that you need to stay healthy. In the end, how many pieces of equipment, how much money, and I know that you're going to deflect and say that it wasn't me. You started it, and in the end, what were the final numbers?
Well, it was this small group of amazing people that started this thing. And, you know, Ryan Reynolds helped me blow it up with 50 million followers. That's really what happened. But we're at two and a half approximately $1 million raised and over 2 million items sent across Canada to over, I think, 400 or 500 locations. One of my favorite days was when I went, you know, obviously after the tragedy, Nick Beaton, who I've had a chance to speak with, who lost his wife, Kristen, in the shooting. He put out a call for PPE in her name, and Heather O'Brien, who was another nurse with Victoria Order of Nurses out in Nova Scotia. And I went to the Boeing hangar, the Bombardier hangar here in Toronto with a group of us, and I just watched the guys load PPE onto a very large Learjet that was flown into Halifax in their name. And then later that night, I got a chance to speak to Nick. Ryan and I got on the phone, and he was amazing for a guy that had been through what he has gone through, and all of the families of the victims. You don't know what to say in those moments, but one thing I've learned through medicine is just sometimes just listening or saying anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, I understand why he would do it, just from the standpoint of, I use this phrase a lot, putting purpose to pain. You know, it's like you can't bring your wife back, obviously, but you can use the pain that you're feeling to try to lessen somebody else's pain. By the way, have you ever met Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah, Ryan and I, we go back to Canada's Walk of Fame. We were inducted the same night. And we kind of became friends then, and we've stayed in touch through the years. It's been, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now, and see each other every once in a while. So he's a great Canadian. He's Ryan from Vancouver to me.
You know, he is a great Canadian, but you know who else is a great Canadian? And if I don't say you, it's going to be hugely embarrassing for you. Do you know who else is a great Canadian? Melissa Spooner. Oh my God, she is a great hockey player and a great Canadian. And obviously, I'm talking about you. And you, as I've said before, you're one of my favorite people. And every time anyone turns to you, as Jonathan Torrance said, you're there. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. And you know what? Before I go, I got sent this yesterday. It's a Team Canada bottle of wine from Pilitary Vineyards here in Niagara. And I just thought we'll just give a little toast to everybody out in Nova Scotia. It's been a rough go, but we're all on the same team, and Women's World Championships will be back in Halifax next year. Women's hockey has a close connection to the Maritimes and to Nova Scotia, and just lots of love to everybody.
Did I get Spooner's name wrong there, by the way?
You did. You said Melissa, it's Natalie, but I wasn't going to throw you under the bus.
You know, Melissa Spooner was actually a triathlete. So I do that sometimes. But I know both Natalie and Melissa, and Natalie is one of my favorite people. But as I said, so are you. So you go back to drinking on the job, and we'll talk again soon.
Cheers. Bye, everybody. No. Cheers. Bye-bye. Thanks,
Haley. That's Haley. You know, sometimes you just get beyond last names, and you just get to, it's Haley, four-time gold medalist, you know, legendary philanthropist, I would say, you know, who will put her heart and soul into the right places. And how cool is it that she decided after her career was over playing hockey, oh, you know what? I think I'll just be a doctor. I mean, talk about a high achieving person, but she's really wonderful. And we thank her like we thank all the guests. I mean, her time isn't more or less valuable than anybody else that's been on the show, except for me. My time is not valuable. I had nothing else to do but look into the camera and say this, hey, Nova Scotia, we care. And when I say we, it's the rest of the country. I'm not a big believer in, you know, you're never alone, that kind of thing. But it's my feeling that you need to hear that we care. All right, we care. Well, we care about this next guest, who was a previous guest. His name is Ian Stewart. And Ian, let's go back to his house, his back deck, where he has set up 27 beer bottles, and he is going to go after the Guinness Book of World Records for most beer bottles opened in 1 minute. Now, Ian, are you there?
I think.
I see you. I hear you. Who could ask for more? So, who's going to time this?
I have an official timekeeper here. I actually have two of them, and they have an air horn. And what happens is when we start the chainsaw, The clock starts, and I have 1 minute to open as many of these as I can. You said I had 27. That's not true. This morning I had 2 2-4s, 48. I'm down to 41 now, but there's 41 beer lined up here on my deck right now.
Okay, so just to confirm, the doctor's drinking and the guy with the chainsaw is drinking. Okay, hey, you know, I'm okay with all of that. So, okay, hold on one sec. Can we hear the air horn? I want to hear it.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
All right, so I think we should get an air horn when you start, when the clock starts, and then at 60 seconds. And who's going to be counting, or should I be doing that?
They're counting the beer bottles?
Yeah, like as you're going along.
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple of rules for this. I got them in my pocket here. For the most beer bottles opened using a chainsaw in 1 minute, has to be done by an individual. It's by the number of caps of beer bottles removed. And for the purpose of this record, a chainsaw is defined as a mechanical saw with sharp edges on a moving chain. Interesting fact, chainsaws were originally invented as an aid for childbirth, but that's not on here. Any type of beer can be used. I had people asking about the beer, so I'm using Budweiser. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I find Budweiser an easy beer to open. Also, if I smash a couple, it's just Budweiser. I don't care. So it can't be pre-opened. Once I open a beer, I don't seal it anyway. And once the cap has been removed, the bottle must be intact. And I probably will smash a few. In the past, I have broken quite a few when I do this. And the timer starts as soon as the claimant starts his or her chainsaw. So when it starts, that's when the clock starts.
World record right now, Guinness Book of World Records, 27. It was set just a few months ago. You own 4 world records, 4 as of right now. The question is, 1 minute from now, will he have 5? You take it away, Ian. Good luck.
Well, I'd love to say I'll have 5, but I think we're ready to go. I think we've done all the explaining we have to, so we're just going to get right into it. Just making sure. Timekeeper, ready?
Ready.
And camera, ready? Timer starts. I'm going to start the saw once just to be sure it goes right. It does. So we are ready to start attempting the official Guinness World Record for beer bottle opening. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, now I do it again. 3, 2, 1, go. What's my time?
So how many was that?
Let's count how many it was. That's 1, 2. That one's broken. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I tied it.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You stinking loser. I mean, hey, it's a great attempt, man. That is bizarre. Just, you must love that popping sound. Like it just, when you get it clean, it just sounds so good.
When they hit right, they just, they pop off, give that nice little satisfying noise.
Okay, well, you are the co-world record holder now. I know your goal was to beat it, but, you know, let's face it. You entertained us, which was the goal of what you were doing. Thanks for doing that. And wow, you know, I just watching your videos and the juggling, and it's very cool, man. And you are also a magician and a hypnotist.
Yep.
You're not playing games with my mind right now, are you?
No, for sure. I've done thousands of hypnosis shows now.
No, I meant you're not hypnotizing me as we go.
Oh, gosh, we're not over the camera. No.
Okay. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for entertaining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we'll get to that record next time.
Oh, it's going to happen.
Thanks, man. That's Ian Stewart, who, by the way, tied the world record. I mean, that's crazy. When they fall over, you don't even get to count them. Okay, well, that is, in a lot of ways, that's our show. Phil, I'm going to get up because this is a kitchen party. And let's face it, in a kitchen party, you got to show off the kitchen. We spent a lot of time cleaning up the kitchen, or at least Karen did. And, oh my gosh, down here, this is Wrigley. Hey, Riggs, how you doing? Hey, Wrigley, he saw the Cheetos. He goes, what the hell's going on here? Why do I not have the Cheetos? Riggs, up here. So cute. Okay, turn around for the camera, Riggs. So that's what we promised to do. That's how we. Were you pointing over here, Case, to the pizza? Yeah, Casey ordered pizza during this, which, as I told you, it's just life in the Landsberg house. And life in the Landsberg house almost always includes one thing, and that's mental health talk. Because we have learned the power of sharing, we have learned the power of talking, we have learned that it makes a huge difference just to be able to say, hey, I'm sick, but I'm not weak. Special thanks for helping this come together. First of all, the Bible Hill Kinsmen, just a great, passionate effort that everybody associated with this really respects and appreciates. Jamie Carroll, who made the original phone call, said, Michael, we got to get out there and do something. And I said, hey, Jamie, are you aware of the fact that getting out there is pretty difficult right now? And this was the next best thing. But I promise you, if you'll have us when this pandemic ends and you can get back on a plane, let's have a reunion. How about that? Quinn McCarty, thank you so much. Arash Madani, same thing. Drew Douglas, thank you as well. So many of you went to school together. This is for you guys like a reunion. And in the end, we hope that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed it. My Home Apparel, we say thanks for these awesome t-shirts. And a reminder that in the end, the one message that we want to share with you, two of them actually, is Nova Scotia. We believe in you and we feel your pain, and we just want you to know that the rest of the country understands how tough this has been for you. And the other thing is that it's a saying that I've said many times before, and I'll say it till the day I die. Just remember, if you're struggling with a mental health challenge and you say, oh my gosh, how do I share it? How do I deal with it? How do I talk to people about it? Just do it. Sharing is like releasing this pain from inside. And it's the first step towards a better place in your life. Because I know that I've been in that place before, but I'm not there now. One mark on my arm this month. That means hope. Hope for you. If you've got a couple of dozen marks, I don't remember the date, to be honest with you. What's the date, Case?
23rd.
23rd? It's that time where you go, I don't know what the date is. I don't know what the day of the week is. I don't even know what month it is, but it doesn't matter. Thank you for joining us. And like I said, I hope that we can be face to face. And just remember, Nova Scotia, we care.